Chapter 4, Mama. Mia Pasap. Our group had grown bigger, and somehow, it made me feel safer. Still, the stench of danger managed to fill the air around us. The bonfire lit low, and we barely saw each other in the darkness, but the light was enough to allow Quila to make animal forms with her hands and its shadows. Her voice changed from shrill to deep, to husky, to brisk and bubbly. I could tell that Miro was enjoying the story. Again, Miro said as he kept his eyes glued on Quila. Quila beamed, but when she looked at Arden, who was sitting close to Gomi, Quila's eyes shadowed. "It's getting late," I said. "We can have another show tomorrow, right, Quila?" "Yes." Miro dragged his feet as he walked towards our makeshift beds. As he lay down on the ground, I kissed him on the forehead. All of a sudden, an image started to form inside my head. I was somewhere in a cottage far away, tucking a boy to sleep. I jerked at the memory. Miro's eyes searched mine. "Mama?" he asked. He must have sensed my confusion. I smiled at him and ruffled his hair. "Go to sleep now," I said. "We'll be up early tomorrow." Goemi stretched out beside her twin. On the other side, Quila lay sleeping while Arden was still putting out the fire. "Thank you for saving us," I said. "Not a problem," he said casually, continuing to douse the fire. "Where's your family?" "Quila's the only family I have." "There must be someone looking for you," I said. "I bet there were, but it's been moon turn since I left home. They probably forgot about me already." "No. A mother never forgets her son's face," I said casually. "Where did that come from? Did I say it for his or my benefit?" I glanced at where Miro was sleeping and hoped that he would get to rest soundly tonight. "I'm going to stay up tonight for a few hours to keep watch," Arden said. "No, I can do the first shift," I insisted. "That's not going to happen," Arden said. "Go to sleep, my lady, Nia." I smiled. Arden was such a sweet boy. I knew he grew rough around the edges traveling all over Akean, but I could sense traces of his kindness. He would make a good son-in-law. At that thought, I blushed. "Let me keep you company for a while." "Sure," he said. He walked over to the far end of our camp and sat down. I followed him and sat beside him. The night had grown cold, and the moons went into hiding behind the distant clouds. "Since we're traveling together now, could you tell me more about yourself?" I asked. "I've been traveling forever," he said, smiling but obviously reluctant. "Can't complain, though. I love Akean. This place is magnificent, and there are lots of places I would have died without seeing if I didn't run away from my province." "Which province?" "I can't tell you that. Otherwise, you might end up telling on me," he joked. I laughed. "You have to trust me, too, Arden." "Too? So, you mean you trust me?" he said, his eyes now fixed on mine. I could see what my daughter saw in him. His eyes glowed bluer than the ocean, and his blonde hair shimmered under the pale moonglow. "That's the only reason I let you go with us," I said. He smiled. "Then it's my turn to thank you, Nia," he said. "How old are you anyway?" 17. "Old enough to know what I want in life." "And that is?" "To become a performer," he said. "I'm pretty good with my tricks. If the way you handled the soldiers were any indication, I would have to agree with you." He laughed at that. "Watch," he said as he pulled an apple from his belt pouch. He threw it in the air, and in one quick motion, he stood up, and his arms slashed several times quickly. I was unaware of what he was doing, but as he moved, he seemed like a skilled swordsman to me. The apple fell on the ground in 8 equally cut pieces. "That's amazing," I said. I was never really a fan of magic tricks, not that I could remember that part either, but I knew how to show my appreciation. Arden beamed before grabbing a few of the apple pieces. He handed me an eighth, and we each had a quick snack. "I want to put up my own traveling show. Sort of like a circus," he continued. "Quila can entertain the children with her stories and puppets while I dazzle the adults. Then, of course, I would have to hire someone who would be willing to train horses, hubbubs even, and I would have the greatest traveling show Akean would ever know. And you know what, if I could just grab hold of a dragon's egg, that would make my traveling show even more famous." Arden was positively beaming, and I admired the young lad for that. "I think that's a great plan, although hubbubs and dragons aren't really a good combination, I said, chuckling. Besides, hubbubs are just mythical creatures, and what do I have to say about dragons, but they're long gone. Nobody even knows how they disappeared. Arden grinned. There must be something that can still bring them back. He shrugged his shoulders. And maybe, I'm the one to find that out. But dragons and hubbubs aside, you should be starting now, I said. And yet that's the beauty of chasing mythical creatures, he said. It gives me a tolerable excuse to procrastinate. I laughed at that retort. My gold coins are not enough. Maybe I could buy a good tent with what I've saved so far, but I would need many carriages to carry the animals. And I haven't talked to other performers yet. He paused. After a while, he continued, it's going to take a lot of work. I can train your horses. I'm pretty good with them. Are you volunteering? Are you sure? He chuckled. I laughed, wondering to myself if I was really up for it. Instead of answering Arden, I shook my head and averted his gaze. I'm curious, though, if you don't mind me asking, he inquired. What's your power? I blushed at his question. I had asked the twins about my power, but the answer they gave me was utterly ridiculous, and I was too ashamed to share it with Arden. It's very private, I said. Arden seemed to understand. He did not push his question. What's your story then? He asked instead. I sighed. There's no story. That's impossible. Everybody has a story. Well, I don't. Or maybe I did, once. Before I woke up not remembering anything at all. Arden's eyes clouded. I'm sorry to hear that. At least you've got Goemi and Miro to remind you of the past. Yes. At least they help me remember. Anyway, if ever I get to form my traveling show and you're up for it, you're welcome to join my troupe, he said, determination coating his voice. Of course, I said, slowly rising to my feet. I better sleep so I can trade places with you later. I turned my back on him. You have a very charming daughter, he said. I looked back, unable to hide my amusement. He was smiling at me, but I could sense that the hint of red touching his cheeks was not sunburn. After all, his hat did have a very wide brim. I know, I said, smiling back. But don't get any ideas.